Okay, now we'll be looking at schema theory again, but part three. So we'll start with an introduction. I'll go through two studies and then we'll have a summary of what we've all been through so far. So, some interesting things about schemas. There are different kinds of schemas. There is self-schema, which is a schema for oneself. There is a person schemata, which is the schemata for other people. Role schemata, which is for the roles or occupations, and event schemata, which is for events or situations. Assimilation is the reuse of a schemata to fit the new information, and new information that fits within an existing schema is more usually found to be easily recalled, which will be explored further in one of the following studies. So we have our first study, which is D'Amago in 1997. He talked about how schemas are one, representations of knowledge, like stereotypes or social roles, or two, mechanisms that simplify cognition. They're like cognitive shortcuts. He also talked about how culture shapes and influences schematic cognition due to these culturally based stereotypes. He continued to talk about gender-based schemas, which are based on what is socially appropriate for men and women. So now we'll have a quiz. Which of these do you believe is stranger? There is a girl and a boy with muscles, like extreme muscles. Which of these is stranger? There's a girl with a pink hairpiece in her hair, or a boy with a pink hairpiece in his hair. In our first question, it is generally considered stranger, out of the norm, for girls to have lots of muscle. In the second question, it is generally, culturally, considered stranger for the boy to be wearing a pink hairpiece than the girl. So it is thought that society's beliefs about gender lead to gender schema, which either influences the processing of social information or influences self-esteem, like whether you are actually conforming to the stereotype or not, and if you do have certain emotions that society expects you to feel as being a male or female. So we have our second study, which is the Brewer and Traians in 1981, and they completed an experiment into memory and the objects in a room. Their aim was to investigate the influence of existing schemas on the recall of an object in a room, which was an office. The procedures: they used 30 university students and asked them to wait in an office. This office was contained, it contained normal objects, a desk, a typewriter, a coffee pot, a calendar, and objects that did not conform to the schema of an office, like a skull, a piece of bark, a pair of pliers. After waiting, the participants were taken out of the room and asked what objects they could remember in the room. Results: most participants remembered the schematic objects, so the ones like the typewriter and the desk. Some participants recalled typical office objects that were not present in the room, so like books. Many participants remember the skull, which goes against schema theory in that it wasn't the schematic objects which were remembered more, because unusual objects often result in better recall, which is not predicted by schema theory. So the evaluation of this study is that the study does not confirm, it does confirm schema theory. It lacks ecological validity due to the fact it was completed in a laboratory. It has sampling bias, and because it only used university students, and the study used deception, but they were debriefed afterwards, and the study would not have worked if they had been briefed beforehand. So schema and memory theory. There are three conditions that determine if a selection of information will be selected for encoding. A person must have a relevant schema. The schema must be in use, and the information incoming must relate to the schema. So here's our summary. What is a schema? A schema is a cognitive framework that assists in processing information. They allow shortcuts in interpreting information. Sometimes it is difficult to retain information that does not conform to our schemas. Schemas can cause people to interpret situations incorrectly. It also can lead to prejudice because people make a single stereotype about a whole group and it may not be how everybody acts. So we have a schema example here. A little girl goes to the beach and she asks her father what the animal flying in the sky is. The father replies that it is a bird. The girl now believes that birds are animals which fly in the sky. This is her schema. Later that month, her father takes her to a zoo. She sees an emu. She asks her father what is that animal. Her father replies that it is a bird. She is confused because it does not match her original idea of what a bird is. Therefore, the girl must change her schema about what a bird is. So we have some schema studies. Bartlett in 1932, Domingo, which we've just been through, which is 1997, Dudley and Gross in 1983, and Brewer and Trains in 1981. So next, if we look at a classroom setting, we can see a student, some desks, a hamburger, a teacher, some chalk, and a board. So, first of all, what kinds of things do you recall? We'll just have another look at the image, just to make sure you understand. So, what kinds of things in the picture did you find strange? The things that you find strange will not be according to what your schema is of a classroom. So, for example, if you thought that the hamburger was strange, it means that a hamburger isn't part of your schema of what a classroom contains. So, what was expected in the classroom? You may expect a teacher or a desk, or you may not expect chalk or a board because you might be more inclined to think of whiteboards and whiteboard markers. And what else might you think to be in the room? So this is what else applies to your schema of what would be in the classroom. So if you think a classroom contains laptops, then that's part of your schema. If finally, your schemas can be different to other people's because of your experiences. Therefore, there are no right or wrong schemas. It all depends on cultural factors, and as the study before showed, gender factors, society's expectations. A range of things all lead to different schemas being developed in different people. So if I asked someone what they thought of when I said roller coaster, you could get two very different reactions. You could get one person saying that they're terrible, awful, and another person might really enjoy them and say they're fun. So one person might say that they're really rickety, another one person might say they're really fast. So that pretty much concludes this talk about schemas. Thanks for listening, guys.